so this is where we left our heroes yesterday, and today is the 18th, 1:18:18. Talking about those ratios, that the formulas here are just ratios. They don't tell you the exact number in a molecule because there are no molecules. These are ionic compounds. And I think we mentioned also, when we go to name a binary ionic compound, we always leave it to the positive. The cation always comes first, the anion always goes second. So NaCl, sodium is going to form a cation, it's going to form a positive ion. It comes first in the formula, it comes first in the name. Lead with the positive. In aluminum oxide, aluminum is going to form a cation, it's going to come first in the formula, come first in the name. Okay, so let's just walk through a couple of sort of practice together. I'm going to turn you loose, and then I'm going to, well, yeah, we'll do that. There are two ways that you can attack these problems. The first is, when you're given a formula, how do you find the name? The second problem is, when you're given the name, how do you find the formula? So the big thing to know, let's do a couple naming. So I will do this and that and that. Oops. How did I not put anything there? Okay. So we're going to start with we're going to start with these three. Shut up, Moser. You're going to give it all away. Okay. When you're looking at a binary ionic compound, those subscripts, these little things down here, do not change anything about the name. Okay? In a binary ionic compound that does not involve transition metals, those are not reflected in the name anywhere. So all the name reflects is this ion and that ion. What's the name of that ion? You all have your periodic tables out, right? Magnesium and chloride. That's it. The next one, we've got potassium oxide. And remember, we are paying very careful attention to those endings, those IDEs. And then the next one, what's that first? Aluminum sulfide. Aluminum sulfide. Okay, that's pretty easy. When you're going the other direction, when you are given a name and you need to find the formula, this is actually the slightly more challenging part for most people. When you are given a name and you need to find the formula, how do you figure out what those subscripts are going to be? How do you figure out the ratio? You have to know your ions. Oh, by the way, I have a present for you this morning. Using your periodic table, what you need to know is what ion does sodium form, and you just write the ion. So sodium forms what? Look at your periodic table. Tell the people at your table. Find sodium. What ion is it going to form? Okay. It's on the periodic table side. Just sodium. Okay. So what's it going to form? +1. Okay. 1 plus. Sulfide is derived from sulfur. And that's going to form S2 minus. We're going to do that crisscross thing that we did yesterday. So we have 2 and 1. We simplify that to Na2S. But that first step is really important. If you didn't get that intuitively, you got to write the ions. So you got to use the periodic table, write the ions, and then you're on. So we are already in the situation where a few of you have got this. You're done. You're ready to take the FIP quiz. You'll take a FIP quiz over each chunk. So you'll learn a chunk, practice a chunk, take a FIP quiz. Then you move on to the next chunk. And the way I'm going to organize this, I've posted chunks from previous years on Classroom. The second chunk is already up. The first chunk is there with the FIP quiz, and you can go ahead and take the FIP quiz. If you take the FIP quiz, you do well, you feel like you've got it, you can move on to the second chunk, regardless of where we're at. We're not going to move on to the second chunk as a class this morning. We may get started in the second period. We have a double period today, right? Okay. We might get started in the second period that we're together. I'm not sure. But that's kind of how this is going to run. So if you complete all 4 chunks ahead of time, and I'm anticipating that we'll probably have, as the class date for taking that big mixed quiz that you have to get 85% on, the 20-question quiz, I'm anticipating that'll be about 2 weeks from now. Okay? So the FIP quizzes, they're worth a point each, no matter how you do. There's no bonus on these because they're online. People are taking them anywhere and everywhere, so I don't do a bonus on those. The practice sheets, I will give you 5 points for having completed, and that helps out with this 9 weeks. If you take all those FIP quizzes before Friday, that's fine. I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't rush it like that. But you can start moving through the material. I'll get chunks 3 and 4 up. I know some of you are probably ready to take the FIP on chunk 1 and start moving. So what we will also do is we'll do a little bit of a sort of a seating shuffle. It's the time of the year when it's nice to be a little bit refreshed anyway. And I think you guys all like where you're sitting and you work well where you're sitting. But what I'm going to suggest is if there are a chunk of people, who are moving through the chunks at a different speed than you, you might want to sit with the chunk of people who are moving through independently. So if you're, we'll kind of assume that maybe the western half of the room is moving through at a slightly faster pace than class pace. Well, actually, how about this? The east and the west rows, so the 2 by the window, the 2 over by the lab tables, are moving at a different pace, and middle will be the middle pace moving with me doing direct instruction. So we'll see how that shakes out after tomorrow, and people can negotiate. Of course, I'm not going to force you to change seats, so if you decide, well, I'm just going to sit here and the people around me can suck it up, then okay. That's fine too. Questions? If you are not done with the practice on this, I would like you working on the... Yes, ma'am?
Do we have to memorize?
It's a great question. So, sort of old school chemistry teachers would have made you memorize the first 30 elements. I think that's ridiculous. In place of that, what I do is I give you a periodic table that doesn't have names on it. Trust me, in 2 weeks, you're going to know them all.
There's the CS on the back.
Cesium.
Yeah,
Okay, and if you look in your textbook, there's a periodic table that has the names on it. And that's your reference if you've got a few. Yeah, cesium, basically you're probably going to have memorized group 1, group 2, group 16, 17, the noble gases, yes or no. We don't use them in compound writing, obviously. But, yeah, I do it the other way, which is to assume that if you look them up enough times, you'll memorize them. So yeah, the same thing, if you flip over to the back, you'll notice that there's a whole lot of information on there. I also don't expect that you will memorize that, but you're going to use it so much that by the end of the year, you're going to have most of it memorized anyway. Honestly, by the end of chapter 9, you'll have the masses for common elements memorized. It happens every year. People surprise themselves and they're like, nitrogen, 14.01. Whoa, I know that. It's kind of cool. So anyway, work on the practice. If you feel like you're ready to take the FIP quiz, take the FIP quiz. Important note. If you are taking any of the FIP quizzes, and I think I put this in the instructions, do not do these just off the top of your head. Write stuff down. Get a blank piece of paper, do your work on a piece of paper, and then you'll turn that into the box so that I can see the work that you did to back up the FIP quiz. For the most part, with 9 years of teaching chemistry and a minor in chemistry, I can mostly do formulas without writing anything down, but there are some that I still write down. So you're starting out on this, write it down. Show me the work. Ha! Okay, go.